You dummy. You're a pathetic and you're a sinner. You're a filthy, dumb sinner, and you get what you deserve. You know how we like our squid now? With lemon and a little marinara. And where did you get that lettuce? Hey, mirror guy, you got a minute? Thank you for being a valued customer of extra dimensional security. We know there are other dimensions than this one, but this is the dimension in which we live, and we will not live in fear. HBO's Watchmen Season 1, Episode 4, Little Fear of Lightning. The AfterBuzz After Show starts right now.
I'm Maria Menounos, and you're tuned in to AfterBuzz TV, the ESPN of TV talk. Now, buzz.
TikTok. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, and all those in concern. We are talking Watchmen, Season 1, Episode 4, Little Fear of Lightning, and that clock is 1 minute to midnight.
That's right.
The end is nigh, ladies and gentlemen. The end is nigh.
Yes, it is. And I think this episode was maybe the best of the season so far.
Just to be fair, Ryan, you kind of say that about every episode.
It gets better and better, ladies and gentlemen. This was such a focused episode, somehow different from the others, but fitting right in. I love this opening scene, and Tehran was losing his mind while watching this.
That was actually not accurate. You're confusing your light-skinned black guys with beards and hats and glasses.
Walked right into that, my dude.
We were watching Nate Miller just go. You literally stood up and cheered.
Yes. Watchmen is my favorite comic book. And as much as I enjoy the movie by Zack Snyder, there were some changes that he decided on, and one of them being the removal of the alien squid. So being able to see that they actually did it, that they showed. For a second, I thought they were just going to tease it, but not actually show it. But man, it looked straight out of the comic book too. Like it was perfect.
Did you like the movie?
Yeah, I liked the movie.
Because a lot of true fans are not fans of the movie.
Not to get too deep into it, I think it's an enjoyable movie. It's good as a film. I just don't think it hits all of the subtle nuances of Watchmen as a book that makes it
not to get too deep into it. You were cursing Zack Snyder's mother. I swear,
he was.
Before the show started, you were hating on Zack Snyder so much. And who, you ask, is on this panel all the way to my left, and the left of the left is the inexplicable Nate Miller.
That's yep. Can't explain it. Here I am on the left.
The Zack Snyder of the panel.
The
Zack Snyder of the panel. To his right, but still to my left, the man of mystery, Ryan Nilsen.
Man of mystery. Well, I'm here to get that mystery solved. We're missing Drew tonight, which
We
I'm really
are
sad about.
missing
But
Drew.
we are so excited to talk about this episode. Also, we got you live in the chat. We are here every Sunday, 7 p.m. PST. So excited to talk Watchmen. And shout out to Drew, who I guess now that you're back, she is the villain of AfterBuzz.
A little too excited you are. A little too excited. If you're asking who I am, I am Tehran, literally. And if you don't know who I am, then you haven't been watching The Watchmen, because that is where I'm at right now. We are going to be breaking down this episode of HBO's Watchmen, Season 1, Episode 4, Little Fear of Lightning, as thus, Mirror Guy. We know a lot about Mirror Guy now. I mean, that is a real thing. Friend of, a little too much about Mirror Guy. Friend of Nemo's. We're going to get into that entire archive of what it is to be a friend of Nemo, the radiologist. We get this picture of Renee and who she really is. Senator Sinister. Wow, the predictions have been on point. We've been talking about the senator, and now it comes to life. The video that cures all. Yes, we watched the video. That video was shocking. It was brilliant. It was well played. It was everything and nothing. Is anything true? Nostalgia. And what are nostalgia pills? That was an entire subplot that was going along with Angela, which led to the conclusion of the setup at the end, and of course all the consequences and benefits of that. Adrian's plight, as we get into the story of Adrian's plight. Did you see what I did there? Adrian plight. No. Okay.
Yo, Adrian.
A special segment, buy or sell, where we actually buy or sell property.
That's right. We buy or sell property, and we also buy and sell what we are loving and hating on this show.
Sure.
Is there an element that's working for you and not so much?
Sure. We have some news and gossip. Our very own expert Nate Miller has a lot of things to tell you. Ryan has some things to chime in. You're going to want to stay tuned for that. And of course, our on-point predictions. It's almost as if we are all Dr. Manhattans up here in this B. Yacht.
Yes.
That's right. You're going to want to stay tuned. We have a lot to discuss. Let's discuss our overall thoughts on the episode. I know that this was a very strong episode, and everyone is in agreement that we all enjoyed it. But I'd love to hear your personal thoughts on this specific episode, Season 1, Episode 4, Little Fear of Lightning. Nate Miller.
I thought it was great. I mean, not to
Thank
echo
you, Nate
what
Miller.
Ryan said, but I do think every episode has been getting better and better. And for me, this one is also my favorite. I think it's the best one so far. I do want to say that with the caveat, though, that I think this is the point in where people who are not familiar with the comic book or maybe only vaguely familiar with the movie are going to start to be very confused. And
Sure.
I think it's interesting that they may look to find those answers, but if you're not prepped with a lot of the background material, a lot of this episode was almost came out of nowhere.
Ryan.
Yeah, this episode could have worked as a standalone short film in a way. I feel Looking Glass, this was his entire episode. We got some great backstory on him as a Jehovah's Witness, and then being in the blast radius on Hoboken, 1985. Loved seeing all that great character development, and yeah, there was a through line for Angela Abar's story towards the end, but this was his episode, and I really do think if you were just a fan of this comic book and watch this could be its own little separate story and stand on its own. That's what's so great about the writing for this show. So I absolutely loved it. I also thought there was some really funny moments and just tons of turns. Always defying your expectations. Characters not turning out to be who you think they are, and people admitting to things awfully quickly. I mean, stuff that happened in this episode on a lesser show would take as long as a whole season, but this was just 40 plus minutes.
I really appreciate it. And I also want to apologize. I keep calling it episode 4, but it is episode 5. It is episode 5 because Nate specifically, you gave me a little tidbit of information regarding the next episode, episode 6, which is this is a must watch.
Yeah, apparently before, when they had done pre-releases of the first batch of episodes for reviewers, they made a note to tell them not to start their reviews until after they had seen the 6th episode. And also from what I've heard from those similar reviewers is that the 6th episode is the one where it really starts to get cracking. And again, also based off that preview, it looks like I think we're going to get a lot more of what is the core story of really what's going on.
It's about to hit the fan.
Yeah,
basically.
and I think this was just a great setup for that. It kept the tone and the pacing along really well. It's just a really great writing tool to be able to tell this backstory and expand upon a character while also progressing the plot at the same time. It's just exceptional. But also just pacing wise, kind of getting, it's like the deep inhale the deep exhale. Yeah, whatever. We're taking a deep breath before this next episode that is going to, I think, kind of really knock that breath out of us.
Well, I'm going to be holding my breath for the next episode because this episode was, in my opinion, fantastic. We got everything that we would want and more. And by everything we would want, I mean we're getting an origin story that's not forced whatsoever. And that's very pertinent to compelling television, where you are getting an idea of a universe, an entire world, without it being contrived at all. This is a very natural progression. We get progression in the storyline. We get every single answer and subplot development as we would like it, and it's timely.
Yeah.
Meaning we didn't have to wait another 5 episodes to see if Senator Sinister was Senator Sinister. We didn't have to wait so long to find out what's going on with Angela's development.
Right.
It was pushed to the forefront in a way that is done so excellently well. And this is the best television show on television, period. And to be very honest, it's not a television show. This is a limited series. This is when they see us from a comic book perspective. There's so much social commentary, so many things that are relevant. And to develop a story that's that has not been told. They are developing the story. This is not a retelling. This is something that's all new, and yet to stay so true to the manuscript that was before it is very difficult. And so hats off to your favorite guy, Ryan.
Damon Lindelof.
Where you must take a shot every time he says that. It could be a shot of Sprite, ladies and gentlemen. However, the concept is this was a great episode. I don't think it was standalone. However, it is one that pushes the narrative as we go.
Yeah,
and we get that with Mirror Guy. Mirror Guy, all of our favorite. What's his real name?
You know by now it's Looking Glass.
Really? I'm pretty sure it's Mirror Guy.
I think it's Tim Blake Nelson.
I think we get this concept of who Looking Glass is. We've always had nods to the personality and the characteristic, but no backstory to go along. And this time we get every piece of backstory we would need. And I don't know if we'll have more Looking Glass as we go along. That is a question to be answered. Nate Miller.
I definitely think we're going to see more of him. It definitely kind of ended ambiguously. But as far as origin stories, this is the first one we've got that is like a real legit straight up A to B, this is what happened kind of a situation. And that it was really cool in how they did it. Being a fan of the comic book, as soon as they went back to 1985, I was geeking out.
Sure, we were at 11-2.
I want to shout out and say that the actor that they got to play Young Wade looks just like the older actor. Like, that's incredible casting. That was really cool. But seeing him in there with all
Actually, I disagree with that. And I think Ryan does too. Because when Ryan saw the actor, you thought it was
I thought it was Lube Man. Or sorry, not Lube, because that's not confirmed yet. I thought it was Blake's
he's
assistant.
Way too young it's way too young to be Petey.
I know, of course, but that was just because of the time frame. However, the look,
skinny white
that
dude.
was the concept. Well, not to be unfair, you all look the same to us too. So the concept is we had a person who you think is casted very well and Ryan thought was possibly miscast. Even the accent was off.
A little off, and also they really stripped him down, I feel, as a character.
I see what you did there.
Yeah, I mean, your thoughts reflect mine entirely. But
let's not do that
the whole time. I completely agree with you. I think we really dissected his character, and they kind of took away this aura for us as an audience as him as this like tough, brooding guy. He kind of has a really tragic backstory that has been affecting him his entire life based on a lie in a way. And it goes back to that original Watchmen comic book of, hey, this is what Adrian Veidt planned all along. And him not knowing that. But it also
answers a question that we had as we were watching the series. The question was, is Rorschach, his journal, public knowledge?
Is it?
Oh, no, it's well, the way I understand it is based off the ending of the book. The journal was published by the New Frontiersman, which is a very fringe far right. So it's public knowledge out there, but it's coming from a source that most people label it a conspiracy theory.
Yes.
So that's why it's the average person is not on board with that.
Exactly.
I do want to say, also, last week when they were in the car, they were talking about Laurie Blake, like, people with a mask, they've got a trauma, like, so what's yours? And here we literally see his trauma in front of the mirrors. We get the whole thing. And on top of that, he has the trauma of being in the psychic blast, of being one of the few people that survived, but still gets these nightmares, as the doctor says. And finding out that the mask is made out of reflectitine, which is like to stop.
Is supposed to. Theoretically, it's the extra dimensional protection against psychic attacks.
But the idea that this guy who's like
it's basically the equivalent of aluminum.
It's
when people wear aluminum,
it's a tinfoil hat that he wears as a mask.
Yes.
Like, oh man, it's just so good.
It's layered.
It's so good.
It was very good to see that blasted 11-2. We were in Hoboken, so we were here in 1985 setting up this world, and we get the blast happening, and we get also the placement of your favorite thing, Nate, which was the squid.
The alien squid that's not really a squid, which it looks right out of the frame in the book. They nailed it. It looks perfect. But the way that they trailed across it with it spread out over the city and you seeing all this havoc, like, oh man.
And we also get a young Wade who is handing out watchtowers. So basically, we're supposed to assume that he's a Jehovah's Witness going out to spread the good word, passing out watchtowers, talking about the end of the world, gets manipulated into going into this house of mirrors, fun house, and thought he was about to have some fun when that is not exactly what happened.
No, she took his clothes and ran.
All his clothes and ran.
Bible boy.
But also, in doing so, saving his life.
Careless Whisper was playing.
While Careless Whisper was playing, which we decided had been played how many times throughout this episode?
3 times.
So there must be some significance to the lyrics, which Ryan seems to know each and every single one by heart.
Oh, yeah. It's the best. I mean, we got George Michael in the house. I'm absolutely loving that. And just taking the song, putting it on its head when he's walking out of the mirror after the blast. And the song is, I guess, whatever was playing the song, slowed it down.
Oh, yeah.
And you just got a whole new vibe from the track.
A very new perspective.
Really awesome.
The same way we got a new perspective on who Wade Tillman is. So now we see the trauma that led to who he is and this backstory leading up to who he has become. We learned that he became an officer after the White Knight because he felt that justice needed to be served. We also see his interpersonal relationship with his ex-wife, Cynthia Tillman, I should say Cynthia Bennett, who works in a DNA reproduction lab for pets, a la The Sixth Day.
And also, I do want to say that the 2 desk clerks look like identical twins. So I don't know if that is just inferring that they're cloning people.
He's not
too.
saying people look alike. I was saying it earlier.
No, but they look like
they were twins.
I mean, when you're at
they
a cloning,
seemed like they were
cloning
clones.
Facility,
yes.
that clones animals, you know.
Especially considering Adrian's current predicament, and we are seeing some type of cloning technology
some type
at work.
Of duplication,
exactly.
A lot of duplication.
And then she's, you want the dog? No?
Oh my
All right, we'll just toss it in the incinerator super casually.
Woof. That was rough.
Which
Woof
also
indeed.
gives you a perspective on this universe on what they think of as life. So the trauma isn't just personal, it's something that the entire earth has in common. There's a trauma where life is no longer designated or science is no longer designated as faith or real.
Well, I think that might be a specific commentary on whatever is this technology that's allowing them to do this cloning of the pets and people undercover too.
But because we've seen this with Adrian. Adrian will have no problem burning a clone of a human.
But that's only because I'm assuming that they're of the same thing that's not really a clone or it's not really a human.
It's not real there.
Right, exactly.
But it was real enough for him to escape.
Yeah.
And we see that, and we'll get into that when we talk about Adrian and his plight. But in this case, we see the ex, who is a scientist, who is a doctor, and has no true respect for life, because that's something that I think science has stripped in this universe.
Yeah, they've stripped of this universe, and like you said, with the carelessness of just like taking out that dog, it was because it looked a little smaller to him. She asked him right when he walked in, hey, do they look the same? A little smaller, instant kill.
Nate?
I just don't. I don't buy that it's a statement on all of the science. I think it's more referring whatever they're doing at this Forever Pet place. I think it's more about that, because when she asked about the size, it's not that it was like smaller and like it was that it wasn't an exact replica of the dog that was.
But they discarded it in a very cruel way, and the reason I bring it up, scientifically speaking, is because whoever we see in the realm of science in this universe, from Vite to True to now
we've seen already.
This, we see a disregard for human and or life. We see this. So we see that they have no problems. We also see Lady True, last episode, is willing to disregard a baby and then says, oh, just kidding, I'm going to give it away. But we know that she really still means to destroy it.
Definitely.
So that's why I'm giving that perspective that possibly it's an offset of a world trauma, and it's something we should at least pay attention to.
Well, there's definitely a direct parallel being driven between the event in New York 11/2 and like our own event in New York of 9/11. Even just the way that they refer to it, the support groups, how the entire world essentially changed after that. It changed the way people view the world.
And a disregard for personal freedoms. Yeah. We get the passing of the Patriot Act after 9/11. A very similar sentiment, and that's why I personally believe it's a social commentary and something we should at least pay much attention to and see how it goes forward. The same way that we see that Tillman has his personal trauma and goes to the
support group,
the ED support group. Yes, and it's not erectile dysfunction. It's
extra dimensional attacks or something like that.
Disruption.
Right.
Yes.
And it goes to what you were just saying. That event has changed how pop culture has worked. In that they might have not gotten the 9/11 we have, but they had 3 million people die from that squid. And, even affected Steven Spielberg didn't make Schindler's List. He made Pale Horse.
Yes.
And that's what she revealed in that sentence. That movie meant so much to her. That was such a fascinating scene to see all the people that were affected. Even one guy who wasn't even alive for the event, but it might have genetic
trauma
10 years after the fact. So fascinating.
The Pale Horse nods are so cool because that comes straight out of the book of that band actually existing. And also when Trent and Atticus released the original soundtrack for the physical edition, it comes as a Pale Horse record. So it has a bunch of fake song names and artwork and what would be the band Pale Horse.
That's so cool.
They're just really going all in on the Easter eggs.
This is
and
awesome.
it's very evident and also a great nod to it. We know there are other dimensions. We know there are other dimensions than this one, but this is the dimension in which we live, and we will not live in fear.
I wrote it down too.
So we get this friend of Nemo's, which is a nod to the friend of Bill's for Alcoholic Anonymous. So it's a similar group. We see these groups. I mean, a big trope and nod was from Fight Club, a very similar feel to it. I felt that it was close to that sensation. And we get Tillman is actually leading the group, and yet seems to be the one who has the most trauma.
And that everyone feels like they're in a tunnel, and he claims to have seen the light. And this woman is calling BS on that.
Calls BS, and we see that specifically with the alarm.
Specifically.
The alarm where he is basically doing drills, over 500 drills. And even though that goes against the booklet, he doesn't care. We saw last week where he had the shelter, and now we know where it's from.
Right.
And he's running to check to see how long it would take him for an attack.
Paranoia is crazy with this guy. He just is waiting for the second it's going to happen again, and he's going to be prepared for it. The fact that he'd even pay, they said they could ship it to him and it'd be there in a week. Not fast enough. Overnight it. I'll pay the fee. The shipping's going to be the price of the device itself. That's so nuts.
The intensity of his feelings and his trauma and his suffering and stuff, and then to have all of this built up in this episode, just to have the turn at the end where essentially his whole world is shattered, was just incredible.
It is very incredible, and it's more incredible that somehow amidst all this he meets a girl.
Well,
and they kind of go on a date, and he's trying to play the counselor, but she initiates, follow me. He does. They go, they have a beer. They're on this lovely date. She's a radiologist. She tests his knowledge of the truth, and she really is a radiologist.
Yeah. She was.
But she's also a member of the 7th Cavalry. And it's all set up in order to lure him to their base, the church that we were looking for at the beginning of the episode.
Which was a set. It wasn't even a church. So they never would have found it. The fact that she makes a point to mention that they even took special note to make the lettuce fall off the truck so that he would really hammer it in. To have a payoff from episode 1 like this in episode 5, he's too good to us.
Yeah, I mean, the lettuce falling off, that was planned. There were all these little things like that throughout this entire episode, from Blake even saying, the cactus that was in the shot, and then a minute later, she's like, I bugged that cactus on your desk. And he follows the lettuce, and we made sure you followed that lettuce that fell right in time. And even when he calls it in, there was a little tiny noise, I don't know if anyone heard it, on the mic. And then they say, Roger that, we'll send in some backup. And he goes in, and they have him right where they want him.
And blanks. They've replaced his bullets with blanks, which an experienced gun person would have noticed from the weight. But it's okay, I understand. He's in a high-stress situation. And it's more stressful because he is watching a CX-924 transportational window being in use. Something that was basically in use when 11-2 happens and is what is suspected to be the cause of the squid. It's the causation.
The teleportation window.
Yes.
For that squid. And they kept putting basketballs through it, and they would just come out random parts of the room. I thought that was so interesting. And his paranoia is at peak level with this. He is around everything that just triggers him.
This is every trigger that he has all in one place. Every single trigger.
Fired up, Nate. But yeah, I think the line about a squid pro quo in this sentence, and that this is what we would use for that. And everything comes to a head here. I was really kind of shocked at this entire encounter because you find out that she is not who she says that she is. Here's the 7th Cavalry. What's going on? Are they linked with Lady True? It's just all these questions are coming up in our heads while this entire thing's going down,
And then, of course, the radiologist who led him there, and they were playing Careless Whisper, and the concept is maybe they should have played These Pros Ain't Loyal, but whatever, that's my opinion. The whole idea is we get something about the senator, and we learn that the senator is evil. Joe Keane is not clean. Something I feel that everyone saw coming.
Yo, real quick though, before we get into that, we have 125 live viewers right now. Y'all,
let's talk about some of these people in the live view. We have Steph Sabra also in the background manning the chat. One of the most loyal people that I know. Steph, any shout outs you'd like to give?
Well, I just want to call the chat out that there's only 13 likes and 124
What's going on?
in the chat. What's going on, chat?
TikTok.
Chat, don't you know you guys, each and every one of you, are as much, if not more so, a part of this panel as all of us?
That's right, Tehran. In fact, we have so many great after shows on our network, AfterBuzz TV, and we really appreciate you listening to us. Please hit that thumbs up button, hit that subscribe button, go on iTunes, give us a 5-star review, 5-star rating, and I will shout you out on air. Thank you so much for making us the ESPN of TV talk, y'all, and thanks for talking Watchmen with us.
Joe Keane has a callous attitude towards Angela's life. Angela is an obstacle. They convince Tillman to set Angela up, and they do so with the video.
I was so praying we were going to watch that video. They kept teeing it up. But yeah, this will change your life.
I thought we would get the after effect of the video and not actually see the video.
A lesser show would do that. A lesser show would do that.
But they showed the video not in full.
Yeah, we didn't even get to see the whole thing. But
because it's ours, but we saw enough to know where it was going. So we get Adrian Veidt specifically on January 21st, 1993, setting up Robert Redford to become the president, and then he recorded it 7 years in the past.
Wow.
It was an elaborate, meticulous hoax to save the world. Trust your host, Nate Miller. I pay a lot of attention.
Trust him.
So we get that Adrian sets up Robert Redford. Of all people, he sets up Robert Redford because
he knows that he will
his values.
Yeah, it's a greater world, the greater good.
I know if you've watched Indecent Proposal, you know that guy needs to be the president.
Has to be.
Or he knows that he's an actor and that he could get him to do what he wants.
And so we get Adrian Veidt admitting that this was all a hoax, and that is the knowledge that is to put Wade Tillman to rest.
That shattered his looking glass.
It did.
Boom.
I see what you did.
Yeah.
Squid pro quos.
Yeah, just the idea that all this stuff that's been building up in this episode, we're seeing just how much time he invests each and every day into his life, into making sure he's got reflectine in his hat. He's wearing the mask at all times. Even when he's eating at home alone, he is wearing the mask to cover most of his face.
He's eating
just
beans.
That paranoid. He's eating beans.
Eating beans out of a can.
And now he realizes, this was a planned event. It wasn't a fluke thing. It's been a lie. And wow, just what that does to his psyche.
With the beans, I was like, he's a perfect candidate. This is psychologically, he is one nudge away from being 7th Cavalry.
A nudge away?
Nudge away.
I don't know about that.
He got
that doesn't
nudged.
correlate with racism, man.
Yes.
You think so?
Here's the concept, and I'm not saying it's about racism. It's about extremism. There's a difference.
Oh, so being extremist is 7th
Cavalry is not just a racist organization. It comes from a racist organization. However, it's more of an extremist organization.
Okay.
So they're on on plight with that. We see a very similar recruiting situation when it comes from terrorist organizations such as ISIS and Al-Qaeda, where they go online and they look for these people in countries like Britain and the United States, in which they see the symptoms of paranoia, feeling oppressed, systematic disenfranchisement, and things of that nature, and they start recruiting in that way.
Can I turn this person? Is he a candidate?
And I would argue that Wade Tillman was not Looking Glass, but Wade Tillman was a perfect candidate.
Wow. You kind of turned me a little, but I still don't think for 7th Cavalry full-fledged, I think that he was a perfect candidate as a puppet for them to take advantage of, but I don't think he's not going full 7th Cavalry.
Really? Because he set up his
mask
best
and
friend,
all.
Angela Abrar. If you remember that. I kind of remember him going to Kashi 6ix9ine.
Yeah,
That was
I think that he just doesn't. I think he's just broken. Like his whole I don't think he knows, because even when he goes, he throws the EDS thing away, but then he thinks about it again. And he brings it back, and I think that was to show that like even the kind of guy that is this invested in it, like one video of Adrian Veidt that supposedly this was shown to him by this Keen, who's a 7th Cavalry member. Like, I don't buy in that he is immediately right away just gonna like, after 500 drills, just be like, wow, everything was a lie. I think he's definitely thinking about it.
Did he set up his friend? Actions speak louder than words.
But he did, because he gave her the options. He said, hey, if you don't help us with this, guess what? We send the 7th Cavalry to her house and murder her whole family. Those were the options, Tehran.
Or the option was, okay, I'm going to still live, right? I'm going to let her know. He had options.
I think this was actually him helping her.
You think so?
In the end, at the grand scheme of
He
things.
could have warned her. Really? Because let me remind
cactus
you.
is bugged.
Let me remind you about who Looking Glass is.
Who is
Looking
he?
Glass is Mr. Paranoia. He's Mr. has all these ways out. This is a person, if he wanted to, he could have, if put in the situation, he could have warned Angela from the get. He could have warned Angela as soon as he got in. He has a lot of ways to do so. This is the disappearing ink guy. This is who he is. So he bought into
Ink. Sorry, yeah.
their instructions, and he did it, and he carried it out to the T. He apologized because he knew he had just betrayed his friend. However, he says, "Is anything true?" Sounds like
He's
recruitment
doubting
tool to
himself,
me.
but there's bugs everywhere. I don't think he could have let her know full-fledged.
For the last time I checked, bugs don't read.
But cameras do.
He could have written something. Meet me. Do this.
Meet me
Yeah.
to talk where a bug is.
No. Meet me outside. Meet me where there
Cash
are
me
no
outside.
bugs. This is the Reflectantine guy.
This is
He
the reflecting
could have
team guy.
figured this out.
I
He
honestly,
bought into it.
I think he's doing her a favor in that
Of course, the
he still gets her the
justification.
pills. He still gets her the pills.
Every extremist still
gotta talk about the pills,
justifies.
too.
Of course,
Still gotta talk about the pills.
Nate, I promise you, I got this, bro. We're getting to nostalgia right next. Nostalgia pills are a big deal because we're talking about the setup, and the setup comes from the nostalgia pills. What were your thoughts on these nostalgia pills?
Well, after last week, I don't know about Ryan. I didn't pick up quite on what the pills were, but after rewatching the episode after the first watch and us doing the show, I had an idea that I didn't know exactly what they were, but the whole idea of they are some type of memory made a lot of sense after the conversation that True and William have. And then also too, looking more closely at the relationship with the daughter, which I think is like a clone of her or her grandmother or something like that.
Could be.
But this idea of reliving these past memories. So to get confirmation that it is nostalgia, which is something that is also straight from the comics. It's something Adrian Veidt created, and as we learned, was outlawed.
They're outlawed, and so are cigarettes, so is tobacco.
Right, which is another really great world building of this super liberal world.
Sure.
As is the Hooded Justice having gay sex with Dollar Bill on on what's that show called? Under the Hood.
It's
which
not
was-
Hood and Justice. It's Dr. Manhattan. I've been watching every episode, and that's Dr. Manhattan.
And that is just another great line, meta commentary line that Panda makes. And so many people online have been looking at every character like, is this Manhattan? Is this Manhattan? And I don't know if he just had incredible foresight to put this in at the right time, or if it's just coincidentally perfect, but great meta commentary.
Him, of course, we mean Ryan.
Damon Lindelof.
Take a shot, people.
Shots.
So we get this nostalgia pills, and we find out what they are. The concept is they also cause a break in psyche. They're very dangerous. So that's setting up for next episode.
Especially dangerous when they're not your memories.
When they're not your memories, and probably not good when you take all of them at the same time.
Right.
Yeah.
Which Angela felt compelled to do so because she was set up by the newest member of 7th Cavalry, Wade Tillman. And we see something from Wade. Wade, in the beginning of the episode, as antagonized by Agent Blake, is I won't take my mask off. It's against regulations. And now at the end, he takes his mask off.
He does take it off.
Yeah.
See, here's the thing. He's not full 7th Cavalry yet. I think he's at this middle point because he does throw out that security system. But he goes back and grabs it.
Sure. There's a
Goes
lot
back
of
and grabs
lot
it.
of people
Also,
who
when they
set
show
the
up with
bomb
the
down and then
guns.
go, "Oh no, maybe I shouldn't have done that." But once the action is committed,
They don't look
let's
like they're
talk
showing
about
up
that
to
setup.
Pick up their little buddy.
So
Let's
we're-
go get our new friend.
we're-
They're about to take him out, man.
Of course, he's a witness. Were we on board with the setup? I want to ask everybody, including you at home, was the setup done for Angela's benefit? That is something that we all pose here.
I think that's a good question. I don't know. I definitely think she's somewhat safe in Lori's hands. I don't think Lori Blake is necessarily the bad guy.
She's
so-
not Senator Sinister.
Right.
Yes.
I think if there's anybody to get arrested by, that's probably pretty safe. I don't know. The ending was so ambiguous that I really don't know if he has a plan and he thought that this was the best way, or if he really was just selling her out because his world is shattered and he doesn't know what to believe anymore.
I think at the end of the day, everything Angela Abar's done, yes, she broke the law, but it was because she was trying to do the right thing, in that she had no idea who this gentleman was, but he probably had something to do with the murder of...
Obstruction of justice is...
It's illegal, but I think you could trace back to why she thought that, and she figures out there's a family connection. So I really do think if Blake is as amazing of an FBI agent as she claims to be, and as we've seen she is, she will figure all that out, and I think we're going to learn so much more backstory about Will Reeves.
I think Wade Tillman's... what happens to Wade Tillman in this episode will determine that, and we will know much more in next week's episode. Very quickly, we do have to talk about Adrian and his plan, which we saw set up. He gets out to write the word "save me" with the bodies that he's shot out into space. He's on the moon. It
Man's
looks
a
like
genius.
Europa, simply because it looks like we're near Jupiter, I believe. So we're on a moon. He's in some type of artificial realm, and he gets out, writes save me at the perfect time for the satellite to pass by. It's Adrian. He's going, and he said he's going to get out of this. Then he gets pulled back in by the warden.
The warden?
Yes.
Yeah, the caretaker.
warden,
Yeah, the game
yes.
warden. That's right. And who has a mask on a horse, on a steed. What a phenomenal sequence. And they don't even waste any time. He's immediately catapulting. They hinted at that last week, in last week's episode. He's immediately launched into the air. We didn't get any candles or anything. I think we're at a continuation of that fourth year. So that awesome. The satellite sees it. I think they know he's there. And when they yank him back, that's what was just so that's what's kind of shocking is, and I guess that's what we need to talk about, is who is this game warden? What's going on with that? I think that might be related to Dr. Manhattan in some way, shape, or form. Maybe that's one
He's
of
part of the system.
It's
Nate,
gotta
what were
be.
you thinking?
I definitely think it has something to do with Manhattan now. He says, the quote I wrote down is, "Our God has left us." Because Ozzy, like, when he gets mad and he starts yelling at him, he's like, your God left you anyways.
It has to be
And-
Manhattan because there's an artificial realm on the moon.
Yeah, and also, I mean, when we talk about references to God in this show, almost all of them are to Manhattan because he is almost literally a god. Like, so much more powerful than anything that comes anywhere near close.
Makes you wish you were zapped in a nuclear chamber with a clock in your hand.
Well,
Who knows?
He doesn't seem happy about it. So.
He doesn't, but I would. Let's get into buy or sell, our special segment
buy or sell.
where we buy or sell a...
Element of the show that we might be liking or not so into.
Let's start with Ryan.
First thing that I am buying in this episode is just the idea that it's the idea that there are these support groups for people who are in that blast radius, in that zone in New York. 1985. I think that's so fascinating. I'm a little curious to see if they kind of dive more into that with people who might have inherited qualities from people who are in New York. I'm really interested in all that. That's such fascinating world building. Selling the idea that Angela Abar, any pills regardless, that she is even remotely conscious from taking all those nostalgia pills, I think that would mess up someone's brain instantly from what I can tell this nostalgia does to someone.
But we'll see what happens next
That's an
week.
OD.
Nate Miller, what are you buying?
I am buying that whole 1985 flashback. That was awesome. That was amazing. I am selling... That's a good question. I'm selling that Adrian Veidt looks like he's the same age in a video recorded 30 years ago. I think you could have got, a
little
younger
CGI.
Adrian.
You could have CGI
younger.
Put some makeup on him or something.
I
The
like that.
gold wig was not enough.
Okay, well, I'm buying a young lady tricking this guy into taking all his clothes off and running off. I'm buying that.
Yeah.
And then the concept that I'm selling Adrian Veidt writing Save Me with the Bodies, knowing he would write enough bodies to write Save Me. I'm selling that.
Sold.
She did the same thing to him at the end that happened at the beginning.
Yes.
I didn't even get that.
Yes.
That's fucking mental.
Got it.
Yeah.
Sold it.
This show.
Love it so much. Let's get into some news and gossip, shall we?
Yes, news and gossip.
AfterBuzz TV News.
As of course, always when you have a TV show, you give a lot of interviews. There's another really good interview that's up right now with Damon. It's on Metro UK.
Oh, you're on a first name basis now.
Yeah,
Very nice.
me and him,
D.
we're really close.
D buddy. That's
he
what he
talks
prefers.
about quite a few things. I just want to point out a couple different ones. He talks about Dr. Manhattan. The quote is, he says, "I will just say it's a lifelong fan of Watchmen. I'd be very disappointed if Dr. Manhattan did not make a significant appearance before the end of the season. So I'm taking that as all but confirmation he will be in the show at some point in time." He does also say we should pay closer attention to Angela Abar and Will Reeves, which I think is what we're really going to pay off in next week, which seems like it's going to be all about the two of them and their connection. And he also talks about the second season of Watchmen, saying that when they wrote the show, it was intended to be a limited series and be just the end of the story at the end of the story. So chances are that they're probably not going to do one, and if they do, it won't be for a really long time.
Wow.
Way
to be a bearer of bad news, buddy.
Yeah, it's kind of like,
In other news, Polygon just put out an article just right now today. It's called "How HBO's Watchmen Recreated Harrowing Moment from the Graphic Novel," and it's got the image straight from the panel of the squid. Also, it's got a nice screen cap of the squid from the show. They talk about how they wanted to bring it alive, how they wanted to match the images, because there's only a few images of it in the book, so they want to try to match that same tone of the blood in New York and the bodies and stuff. And they just did a great job. Great article. Check it out.
Great job. Thank you for doing a great job, Nate Miller. Bring back that Zack Snyder uncut Justice League. Let's get into some predictions, shall we?
Your AfterBuzz TV prediction.
Ryan Nilsen, I need some predictions.
they'll
man.
release the Snyder Cut? No. I do think they will do that, by the way. Damon Lindelof posted in support of that today on Instagram, and, Zack Snyder directed the movie. I'm predicting that next week, like he said, every interview, every person who's gotten screeners is like, don't write your review until episode 6. Episode 6 is amazing. It looked super special. I think we're going to get a really amazing montage episode of all these memories, all these flashbacks. The flashbacks in this show have been what everyone's talking about. These scenarios that take place in the 20s, in the 40s, even in the 80s. So I'm really curious to see that. I'm predicting we learn that Will Reeves does indeed have powers.
Interesting. Nate Miller.
Yeah, I'm really curious to see more about the 7th Cavalry's plan involving these teleporting portals thing, what they intend to do. I also am really curious to see what Keane was talking about when he said that he and Judd had both been sent there to manage the problem, kind of on opposite sides of the spectrum, but still as being part of what plan. And if they're working together, then how does that tie in with Lori and the FBI? And then what does that mean for Will and True? And I don't know what any of it means, but I think we're going to get a lot of answers next week.
Interesting. And I will tell you this, I predict the unpredictable. I have no idea what's going to happen, and I cannot wait till next week to watch that amazing episode 6 as we have been promised. But until then, where can people find you if you want to be found? Nate Miller.
You can find me everywhere, guys, at Dog Like Nate.
You guys
Ryan Nilsen.
You can find me on Twitter at Rye Nilsen, RYNILSEN, and on Instagram at Ryan Nilsen _. Shout out to all 145 of you in the chat. Please like this video. Thank you so much for your support and watching Watchmen.
Share and subscribe and give us that 5 stars on iTunes if you're listening. And of course, I am Tehran, literally at I am Tehran all across the board. IAMTEHRAN. And when I am not on Mars, you can find me paneling and hosting on a slew of other AfterBuzz after shows, because your favorite TV shows are my favorite TV shows too. Until next week. TikTok, 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 TikTok,
Our
TikTok.
founder, Keven Undergaro, and me, Maria Menounos, would like to thank you for tuning in to AfterBuzz TV. Remember, we're not just the first, we're the biggest in the world, and we're the only destination for all your favorite TV shows. Whatever you crave, we've got it. So go to AfterBuzzTV.com and check out our lineup. Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.